Oh, Dr. Cinema here, where the only thing consistent is that I keep uploading videos on an inconsistent basis. And today is another Dr. Cinema diagnosis. Arguably one of the most famous American film franchises of all time is Friday the 13th. It started back in 1980 and has the most recent entry in their franchise, the 13th installment. 13th? 12th. It's 12th. The 12th installment being in 2009. And it has video games, comics, that kind of stuff. So, I figured that for today's diagnosis, I set straight the timeline of Friday the 13th as much as I can. Because it, the, despite the fact that all the installments seem to have their own order, the actual movies themselves, the fictional events in the movie, are a little bit more confusing. So let's get started. The original film that was released in 1980 has its events actually take place in 1979, June of 1979. We know this because in one of the more direct sequels, it has the tombstone of Pamela Voorhees, say 1979 is when she died. So that's a little weird. But then it gets even more weird because parts 2, 3, and 4 all take place within the same 3 to 4 day period in 1984. Yeah, it's like part 2 happens one day, the next day it's part 3, and then again, next day it's part 4. So it's like 3 day, and let's be generous and say 4 day period. That is a lot of killing for Jason to go through, which really begs the question of why some people in the later installments would say Jason's a legend, even though he basically killed like half the town, even by part 4. So that's a little confusing. But so far, those are the two biggest dates. Parts 5 and 6, it's a little tricky because it just says years later. So part 5 can either take place in the year 1989 or 1990, with part 6 logically taking place the year afterwards. So that'll be either 1990 or 1991. But it's within that little time frame there, so there's really no big deal there. But then part 7 is said to take place in 2000. Yeah, that didn't quite go well. And part 8 is, it's a little tricky. I mean, part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, takes place in either 2001, 2002, or 2003. Yeah, and this takes place in a movie that was released in 1989. So that's a little awkward. Now, a lot of fans like to think that it takes place in 2002. However, I'm gonna say it takes place in the year 2001. Mainly because the next film, Jason Goes to Hell, doesn't really have a set date, but according to the tie-in comic that takes place between Part 8 and Part 9, Jason apparently walks from Manhattan back to Camp Crystal Lake in New Jersey, and then the FBI has enough time to set up a trap for Jason. And then Freddy vs. Jason was released in 2003, and out of all the films released in Friday the 13th, Freddy vs. Jason seems to actually take place in the year it was released. So I'm going to say Part 8 takes place in 2001, and then The Events of Jason Goes to Hell takes place in 2002, and then Freddy vs. Jason takes place in 2003. Now, we did skip one film in all this. Between Jason Goes to Hell and Freddy vs. Jason, we have Jason X, which is a little confusing because it starts off with the government having Jason in a research facility that apparently exists in Crystal Lake and we've never heard about. However, it does say that Jason X does start take place in the year 2010, so having Freddy vs. Jason takes place in 2003 actually still makes kind of sense. Jason Goes to Hell ends with Jason later being dragged to hell with Freddy later resurrecting him for Freddy vs. Jason. But seeing how in Freddy vs. Jason, Jason seems to just die like in any other movie, we can assume he resurrected himself on another Friday the 13th. The government caught him. They're experimenting him in 2010 until he became frozen in cryogenics. And then he'll style out in 2455. Yeah, the majority of Jason X takes place in the year 2455. This timeline is more stretched out than, I'm gonna say, the MCU. I mean, if you think the MCU has some timeline issues, take a look at the Friday the 13th franchise. We have Part 1 in 1979, 2, 3, and 4 in 1984, Part 5 taking place in either 1989, 1990, Part 6 taking place in either 1990, 1991, Part 7 in 2000, Part 8 in 2001, Jason Goes to Hell in 2002, Freddy vs. Jason in 2003, and then Jason X 2010/2455. That's a messed up timeline. Yeah, I don't know why they went this way, but whatever. So that's basically the diagnosis of today. The timeline of Friday the 13th. Thursday, very special video coming out, as well as this Friday, which is also a Friday the 13th, 2 special videos. So be on the lookout for that for Thursday and Friday of this week. Otherwise, I'm Dr. Cinema, and I will see you next time.